All the way back in 2017, Tesla delivered the first Model 3. This was a huge turning point for the company because it meant a huge struggle ahead, but ultimately the start of them scaling up to the automaker they are today. This car improved in many ways over the years, but with design, it pretty much stayed the same. At a glance, a 2017 versus 2023 Model 3 looks strikingly similar, and the exterior truly didn't change much. That's why earlier this year, Tesla finally released what they call the re-engineered Tesla Model 3. It was announced for the US market in January, brings a lot of changes and upgrades, and I picked mine up in February. Today, I'm going to break down my full experience living with this car for about 2 months, get into the good, the bad, and more, so let's get into it. To start with, let's overview the main changes to the new Model 3. At a quick glance, the interior has been upgraded, the stocks have been removed, the headlights and taillights have changed, and beyond that, it's still a Model 3. I purchased a standard rear-wheel drive Model 3. This comes in at $38,990, gets an EPA range of 272 miles, top speed of 125 miles per hour, and a 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds. The only option I upgraded was getting red paint. Up from there, Tesla sells a dual-motor long-range version with more range. Beyond range, it's quicker, and the battery pack chemistry is different. One actual benefit of the standard range Model 3 is that it uses an LFP chemistry that is best charged to 100% every day. So daily, you have access to the full car battery. In the long range, Tesla will recommend you only charge to 80% each day. We also know that Tesla will soon be selling the Performance or Ludicrous trim of this car. The only other real difference between the first two trims is the sound system, which is unfortunately downgraded from 17 speakers, dual subwoofers, and dual amplifiers in the long range to 9 speakers and 1 amp in standard range. This is something I wish Tesla would sell an option for, because I would absolutely pay to get that upgrade in the standard range car. I point out those differences to say that other than that, this is the Model 3 as Tesla ships it today. One other small omission is floor mats. I believe the long range comes with them, whereas standard range doesn't, and that's one of those frustrating Tesla downgrades. Also, since this car is so new, I haven't been able to get floor mats for it. I think they should be included with every car they sell. Outside, it has 4 standard doors with flush handles. To open, you place your thumb on the big part and then pull. Up front is the updated hood and bumper. The shape of the hood is quite different than before, and the headlights immediately point out that this is a different Model 3. I personally love the new look, and it looks a lot like the Roadster concept. This functions as a pretty decent manual open and close front trunk, and one nice upgrade there is that the windshield wiper fluid spout has been moved to a more accessible position. You can definitely notice that the hood is fairly squared off as well, compared to previous years. As you travel to the back, you'll notice the all-glass roof. This is split in 2 parts, so there is a beam in the middle of it, but it comes tinted and adds headroom while providing nice views, especially for rear passengers. Around back, the Tesla name has been spelled out across the trunk, and the taillight design has changed as well. I also like this new sleek look, but a large part of that is simply that it's something noticeably different for this car. When you open the powered trunk, those taillights travel with the door, which is new for this car as well. One thing I'll note is that yes, the lower lights activate and display blinkers or flashers when the trunk is up. When you open that trunk, you'll notice a slightly increased trunk over previous years, along with a very deep understorage compartment and 2 side cubbies. Previously, this car only had 1, so that extra space is very nice to have. This is a lot more space than you typically see in a car of this size, and this, along with the front trunk, are things enabled by this car being fully electric. There's more space out of the same package. For wheels, I have the stock 18-inch Photon wheels that come with these aero covers. I keep the covers on for best efficiency, and the look is upgraded enough for me to still like it, but if you take those off, the wheels underneath do look pretty good as well. All around the car, you'll notice cameras, and these serve many functions. First and foremost, they are the cameras you use on screen for parking. Then these cameras function for the Sentry Mode security system, and lastly, these cameras enable Tesla's autopilot system or FSD if you pay for that upgrade. More on that in the driving section. Inside is where I'd argue the most change comes to the Model 3. Tesla has a long list of everything that has changed here, including improved ride comfort, the redesigned interior, a super quiet cabin, and more. After driving it for 2 months, I'd say the main things you notice are indeed ride comfort and the quiet cabin. Tesla did a fantastic job upgrading this car. I drove this new Model 3 for about 2 weeks, then drove my 2022 Model Y again. First, I noticed a bumpier ride, of course, with that car, but when I got on the freeway, I thought a window was rolled down. I had gotten so used to how quiet the Model 3 is. They did a really great job to where it's noticeable and now better than most other cars. To me, these are the main improvements to this car that make it worthwhile over its predecessor. It doesn't just look cooler or different, it's a far better car to be in. Up front, the Model 3's new interior has been changed entirely. All that you really have up front as a driver is a steering wheel and a center touchscreen. The dash has been updated with new materials that look really nice, and then there's a surround LED strip that can be customized to any color you want. This is a very small touch, but it's pretty nice. Especially when driving at night, it really gives you a panoramic feel that adds to the driving experience. It's hard to describe, but that little touch is nice and does a lot. Underneath the center screen is a wireless phone charger, and then the center console. This has two doors that slide open, one revealing cup holders, and the other revealing the space underneath. Inside of there is also a 12-volt outlet. Underneath the magnetic armrest is more storage, along with a single USB-C port. Then the glove box adds a little more space to this. It releases from the screen and then closes magnetically. I think they purposely made this close extremely solidly since the old ones sometimes felt pretty cheap. The doors have normal buttons for windows and then larger door release buttons than before, which is nice since I find people are less confused as to how to open this door. Above you is a button for hazards, dome lights, a rear view mirror, interior camera, and two pretty standard sun visors with lighted mirrors. Next to those hazards though will come backup shifter buttons. These are hidden there and will pop up in case the screen malfunctions, since all shifting has been moved to the center touchscreen. This is a bit of a controversy with this car. They even put shifting on the screen. The other bold design choice comes with the removal of the left stalk, meaning your turn signals are handled with buttons on the steering wheel. This wheel has a normal center horn, then on the left side, turn signals, brights, and a scroll wheel to handle media controls, or other options you can configure from there. On the right side, there is a button to bring up cameras on screen, windshield wipers, voice commands, and a scroll wheel to handle autopilot controls. The screen in the new Model 3 is also slightly upgraded. It has smaller bezels than before, but in practice, you barely really notice this. We'll talk more about controls and the screen in a bit, but let's finish out the interior. One big upgrade to this car comes with all of the seats. They are all more comfortable than before, and the front seats are ventilated in addition to being heated. You have 3 levels of cooling available, and this is a huge upgrade to the comfort in this car, especially since it has an all-glass roof. Sometimes that roof is a bit warm in hot climates, so cooled seats really help keep you and your back nice and cool without having to blast the AC. The driver's seat has adjustments that are saved to your driver profile, along with adjustable lumbar support. The passenger seat has the same minus that adjustable lumbar support. The rear seats have been improved and add a lot of comfort over previous years. While they are perforated like the front seats, they are only heated and the middle seat gets no climate control. That middle seat folds down as an armrest and a cup holder, but one thing I do notice there is that it doesn't quite fold down and sit. It rests slightly higher than it should. I'm not sure if this is a problem with the build of my car or just this car in general. As a rear passenger, there are seat back pockets, storage in the door pockets, dome lights above you, coat hangers, and then a rear center screen. This is a big change for this car and allows rear passengers to adjust their own climate, adjust heated seats, adjust the front passenger seat if needed, and then control media. Not only can you control it, but you can stream from Netflix, Disney+, Twitch, Hulu, and YouTube right on screen, completely independent of the front screen. It even connects to its own Bluetooth device, so rear passengers can use this to stream to their own headphones. This is a really cool feature and definitely an upgrade, but I will say, the positioning of the screen is pretty crazy. It's not all that big, and I'm not sure who wants to be looking all the way down the whole time to watch something on a drive. I'd imagine most will still opt to just use an iPad and mount it to the back of the front seat, but this feature is there and very cool to be built into the car automatically, especially since you can stream while you drive. Then beneath that center screen are 2 USB-C ports for rear passengers. Those rear seats also fold forward as needed so that you can carry longer cargo passing through the trunk into the cabin. Overall, this is still better than a lot of cars, but it does leave quite a bit to be desired when I compare it to my 2022 Model Y. I'm a musician, so I'm very particular, and I do wish I had the long range for the sound system alone. So when you get into the Model 3, this is your main screen. You have a few options on the left third, and then on the right 2/3 is your maps, and any other app you open is going to come over on top of this. And the reason that this is pretty much dedicated to everything, and this is only used for a couple things, is because this is your driver info. So when you head out to drive, this is actually your full display that gives you your speed and everything. On the left side here, we have speed, we have what gear I'm in, what percentage I have for my charge. It gives me info about my lights, and then all of these visualizations. And then of course, when I'm below a certain speed, this is how I actually shift. Once I come to a stop and shift into park, that changes back to vehicle controls. We can see here that I can open or close the trunk, tap to activate reverse, and then I have cards at the bottom here. But the right 2/3 is Maps that is powered by Google, and then anytime you bring anything else up, like this is Title, it comes over top. Tap that again, it disappears, or you can simply swipe it away. I personally like bringing up the rear cameras quite a bit because this is kind of the biggest view you can get for a rear camera in a lot of vehicles. You have a bunch of different music options. You have other things like arcade. You can also go to theater, stream various things. You have fun things in Toy Box, like the fact that there's a missions mode. And then this dock is fully customizable. You can move apps around as you wish. One of my favorite features in Teslas is the driver profile. And the cool thing is that this is actually synced to my Tesla account. So anytime I make a change, this is synced. We can see it last synced 45 minutes ago. If I were to make a change here, it would sync to my Tesla account. And then if I get into any other Tesla and I get key access, all of my settings are saved. And that includes all of the settings in the settings menu. This includes every streaming service I'm logged into. Everything is incredibly seamless there. The other thing is seat positioning and mirror adjustments. So if you have multiple people driving this car, when they get in with their own key, it's set up exactly as they like it, even with their own Spotify login or whatever it may be. The key card is what Tesla will give you when you take delivery, but they'll also help you set up your phone as the key, and that's really meant to be your main key. I will say I have been having a little more issues with phone as key the past couple of weeks with this car in particular. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. I have it on in the background, but sometimes I walk up to the car and it just won't open, and I have to open up the app. I've even waited longer than that. I've had to click unlock from the app, and it unlocks, but it doesn't actually do the Bluetooth automatic unlock functionality, which is frustrating, and it's another reason to keep this key in your wallet. Another thing that's saved to your driver profile is climate settings, and this is something that I think a lot of people seem to miss. A lot of reviewers review this car and they're like, ugh, there's no vents that I can move, because you change this on screen. It's pretty cool to see the visualization of where your airflow is, and you change your temperature on screen. Anything you want to change regarding climate and heated or cooled seats, a heated steering wheel, all of that stuff is controlled on screen. But what a lot of people seem to miss is the fact that when I move my vent positioning up here, it says saving, and that's because that's saving to my driver profile. Now, every time I get in this car, it's going to automatically adjust the driver's side vents to my preferences. So for myself, I basically never touch that menu, and I only ever do this. When I'm a little bit warm, I turn the temperature down. It automatically turns up the vents a little bit and brings me to that temperature. If I'm a little bit cold, I just adjust the temperature up. And then, of course, there's the Tesla app. You have all your main controls. You can precondition, control climate, see your location, schedule charging, do security options, live stream your Sentry mode cameras from around the car, see charge stats, and much more. When you tap the bottom left here, that brings up first your controls menu out of all of these settings. All of these can be dialed in, but the controls menu is the default one, and that's because this is all stuff you might need while you're driving. So we have lights, we have mirror settings, things like child lock, open the glove box, windshield wiper settings, mirror settings, and all of that stuff. Lastly, while this left scroll wheel handles all media, they actually give you more options now if you press and hold. So I'm pressing and holding, and I can choose between all of these different options. And for some people, that's pretty nice so that you don't have to engage with the screen. You use this for media controls, and then if I want to change fan speed, brightness, acceleration mode, all of stuff like that, I just press and hold, and I can bring that up. Let's change this to the camera. So now the left scroll wheel, I can turn my media down, press play, or press and hold, and now it's bringing up my rear camera. This is a new feature for these cars, but it's also a feature now available on all Model 3s and Ys back to 2017 because you get over-the-air software updates, which I think is one of the best parts of these cars. So with all of that said, let's take this new and improved Model 3 for a drive. So the first thing to notice in the Model 3 is just how much quieter the cabin is. So I have AC off, everything is off right now, and it's very quiet inside. And you can really notice the difference when you shut the door. You can check out how much less road noise there is than usual. I'm already up to 20 miles an hour. Gonna get onto a fairly bumpy road here. And it not only absorbs everything better from a ride quality standpoint, but just from an acoustic standpoint as well. Overall, just a really solid ride, really easy to drive per usual with the Model 3, but it just feels that much smoother. A lot of times in the past, that has been the missing thing in these cars. They're so smooth to actually accelerate in, to steer in, everything, but then it's just like, this is a little bit of a bumpy ride. This one is by far the best that Tesla has done with the Model 3 or Y, and I love driving this car. This is standard range, so this is the second slowest Tesla to the standard range Model Y, but it still packs a punch. To a lot of people, the base Model 3 still is a launch. So it has plenty of power for merging onto the freeway, doing whatever you need, and just generally having fun. So here we can see me engaging with the turn signals, and I am already used to this. I'm gonna change left here. Good to go, and then turn to the right. good to go. I really enjoy these turn signals because of how little I have to move my hand. I don't have to reach for a stock, and I know it's not that big of a deal to reach for a stock. It's totally fine for cars to have stocks, but it is pretty convenient. And once you're used to this, I go back to the Model Y with stocks and I reach my thumb over expecting to have my turn signal and I have to reach for a stock. I really like this. I really like this setup. The only time it doesn't make sense is when you're on a roundabout or when you have to do 2 turns back to back and you really notice it's like, oh, I'm turning right, but I want to signal left, but now my turn signal is over here. So that, along with headlight controls, is what has moved over to the steering wheel here and has replaced the stock on the left. But the stock on the right is, of course, all of your shifting and autopilot functions. So autopilot has been mapped to this scroll wheel, and then shifting on screen is what you're going to do for a turn like this. Swipe down for reverse, turn around, swipe up for drive. Again, this is one of those things that I think you get used to pretty quickly. I understand all the criticisms of this, absolutely, but basically the only difference I notice is that when I get in a Model Y to go into park, I reach for right here on the screen to go into park, but it's actually a stock. But of course, like a lot of features like this with a Tesla, there is the control that they give you, and this is like your primary version. There's the backup version up here, but really the way they want you to change between drive and reverse in the future is that the car does it for you. And they already have the first version of this. It's called Auto Shift Out of Park. So if you go to pedals and steering, you can turn Auto Shift Out of Park on. And of course, this is a beta, but essentially this is gonna guess which direction you will go out of park. So for any time I have pulled back into a parking spot and I just need to go straight, all I need to do is tap the brake and now I'm shifted into drive. But it's of course supposed to guess when you need reverse as well. And this is one of those situations where it doesn't get it right, so you're going to need to engage with the screen manually. Because right now it's guessing that I need to shift into drive. So I'm gonna shift into drive by tapping the brake, but obviously I don't actually have enough room here. I need to back up first, so I'm gonna have to take this over. It should have guessed reverse in this situation, and this does happen from time to time. But then of course, this is what your shifting experience is gonna be until Tesla introduces some sort of feature that accurately guesses everything for you. And I still think that's probably a ways off. Swiping is definitely weird at first. You're like, I'm swiping for a vehicle control, like an actual control. I'm swiping on a screen, which almost feels like a video game. But again, I'm used to it. I've been driving this for a couple months, and I don't really miss an actual shifter. I do like the look of the steering wheel just attached to the dash with nothing else next to it, but is it better? Arguable. So again, this is the base model standard range, and it still packs plenty of power. It's rear-wheel drive. I think it's a 5.8 second 0 to 60, and top speed beyond what most people will ever use. But one benefit is the LFP battery pack, and you'll see here I'm at 95% battery. That's because I charged up to 100% last night, which is what is recommended for this car. But right here, let's go ahead and do a full-out launch just to experience that in the standard range Model 3. So yes, doesn't it all have that punch that you get from other cars? But still, tons of instant torque, tons of power available to you. So I think for the majority of customers, this is still an incredibly impressive vehicle. Steering is very tight and direct to all of your input there, and I love that about these cars. The only thing I do notice is since this is rear-wheel drive, if you take a turn very quickly, you can notice that the front wheels aren't helping out with the power there. So here's a decent dip. The way it takes that is just way better than any other previous Model 3. And I think most customers, it really will be noticeable. Another thing that Tesla has added recently to all of their cars that really makes sense when you have blinker buttons on the steering wheel is auto lane change turn signal canceling. So I change left here, I signal to go left, change lanes, and it automatically disengages the turn signal after it recognizes that I have changed lanes. It adds this further in for navigation, so if it knows you need to make a number of lane changes, it won't turn off. But overall, it's really nice so that you don't have to click another button to turn off the turn signal after you've completed your lane change. And then of course for driving, you can choose between chill acceleration, so I'm right here, I'm gonna floor it. Still some pretty decent acceleration, and then standard. Also comfort, standard, and sport steering. As you can see on the left side of the screen here, these are your autopilot visualizations. Now, I don't have any sort of upgrade here, so this is the stock autopilot system that comes with any Tesla. You don't have to pay for any upgrade here. So it's automatically rendering all the cars around me, and you can scroll around to see further details. It's definitely pretty interesting and pretty cool to see. Like that car's coming up to my right. And overall, it does a really good job, and it's kind of helpful just to give you a general picture of what's going on around you without it being a quick camera view that's always passing through the road and all of that stuff. But then, of course, this contributes to the autopilot system. So basic autopilot includes traffic-aware cruise control and auto steer, and you can do it in a lot of situations. So right here, it shows me the icon that I can do it, and I press the scroll wheel, and now I'm into the autopilot system. I have it a single press right now, but you can also choose a double press so that you can go into traffic-aware cruise control, or 2 clicks to get into full auto steer. But right now, it's doing everything for me. It's gonna brake for me as we come up to this red light, but it's not gonna do any of the more advanced stuff like actually recognize if it's a red light, take any turns for me. Anytime I have to turn and do anything beyond just stay in this lane, that's when you would need a full self-driving upgrade if you want it to do that for you. Now, Tesla recently introduced FSD 12.3, which is by far their best version yet, and it really is a step ahead, but still, that package is $12,000 or $200 a month, so I think you really need to try it. If you order the car with someone's referral link, which mine is linked below, you'll get a 3-month free trial of full self-driving. It's worth a try for sure, and then you can kind of decide, is this what I need, or do I really just want to drive myself and then have some lane keeping when I'm on a longer journey and using it mainly on the freeway, which is where that basic included autopilot is intended to be used most. But for my day-to-day usage, I end up kind of driving myself, getting into the lane I want to be in, and then having autopilot take over. With that said, it is only a software upgrade, so this car comes stock with all of the hardware necessary for Tesla's full self-driving package, so all you need to do is pay for it through the app to upgrade to full self-driving. There's no additional hardware necessary, and that's a pretty cool thing because you can buy the car and then you can get your car improved later on if you want more full self-driving features, or if Tesla improves that software in time, which they should. The difference between this and a current Model Y is really stark, and then the difference between this and even just a couple years ago, the Model 3, it's really, really impressive, both in sound and ride quality. This steering wheel also, I think it's a little bit bigger than the prior Model 3 and Model Y steering wheel, and I really like the feel of this, along with the look and the written out Tesla logo as opposed to the metal logo in the middle of the wheel. So one other feature Tesla added recently is their 3D Park Assist. Now, I still think that the best park assist is a 360 view because you actually see your environment displayed all around you. And Rivian does this, lots of other companies do this. But now, when you get below a certain speed and you're parking, this will come up on screen, this kind of overhead 360 view. And it is pretty interesting to see what it is. It can be helpful. And you can scroll around here and really see in 3D everything that's around you. It's rendering this pole up here, all of the cars that I'm next to, and we can see that this is yellow because I'm a little close to this car. And this is Tesla's replacement for a park assist because they got rid of ultrasonic sensors and it's just using their vision system. So this is what it's showing you and rendering to help you park, and this is what would beep at you if you're getting too close to something. Again, it's very cool, and it's cool that it renders all of this for you and you can see everything that this computer and this camera system is understanding, but still, I'd just rather see the actual road overhead, and I got used to that in the Rivian R1T. I don't see why Tesla has not done that yet. It's also something that isn't always available. It's usually available, but if it's raining or if there's certain other bad lighting conditions, it can't actually do all of the processing, and then it's not there for you. Versus a 360 overhead view is just taking the cameras and stitching it together, and sure, that can have its own issues as well, but I'd rather have something that's available at all times than this system. Another thing worth noting is that Rattles kind of are a Tesla thing. Like, I think this is the 5th Tesla I've owned, and this is the first one that has not had a rattle. There was almost a rattle in the window when I first got it, but that went away. And so every other Tesla, I believe I've had to actually bring it in for service to get a rattle fixed because it was so prominent. But this one doesn't have any rattles. And of course, that's one out of eventually millions of these cars to be produced. So that's not a very big sample size. But I do think in addition to all the new materials they've done, all the cabin isolation, I do think they've done a better job building this so it has less opportunities to rattle. I'm really glad to see that because when you're buying a car that is almost $40,000, getting a sudden rattle that's just kind of plastic on plastic, definitely not a good experience. One other thing worth noting is it's pretty hot outside and I'm using the cooled seats. Very, very worthwhile addition to this car. I'm merging onto the freeway now and we can test out two different things. One, just what the cabin noise is like once you're getting to 70 miles an hour or over. And then two, autopilot. So the cabin is obviously louder than when I'm going 20 miles an hour or something. I'm at 65 right now, but overall it's pretty solid. I'm not having to speak up as much as I normally have to in a video like this. In most cars, I have to really use kind of a different voice. Right here, I'm pretty much talking at normal volume and I'm going 70. Not just road noise, but wind noise is reduced as well when you're going as fast as I am. For autopilot, that's all handled on the right scroll wheel. I'll engage it right now. And of course, you do need to keep your hands on the wheel. You do need to stay attentive. And then you can get out of it by either pressing the brake or steering out of it or pressing the scroll wheel. I usually prefer to just press the scroll wheel and kind of take over by pressing the accelerator at the same time, like so. So essentially the car is going to drive forever for me in this lane. If the road markings get extremely poor, it might ask you to take over or something like that. And you'll probably find certain situations you personally feel more comfortable taking over, like intense curves and such. But overall, it's going to do a really good job following with whatever car lengths I have set right here from the car in front of me. The basic autopilot system works incredibly well, and for me on long drives, it takes a lot of the stress out of it, makes it a whole lot less taxing. So if I want to make a lane change right here, I'm usually just going to signal first, check my blind spot camera, I'm good to go, disengage autopilot, make the lane change, and then once I'm centered, re-engage autopilot with the scroll wheel, and I'm good to go. Auto lane change, included with the enhanced autopilot or full self-driving package, is a very nice feature coupled with that, because you just tell it to signal for you. You don't have to disengage autopilot, and it does a really good job most of the time. But if it's not worth the cost to you, which I don't think it is for most people, then this is how you do it, and it works totally fine. As far as build quality, the only issue I've noticed with my Model 3 is the charge port door alignment. It seems a tad off and sometimes sticks a bit when opening, although I couldn't replicate it here. Regarding charging, the Tesla charging experience is top-notch. Oftentimes I see reviewers glaze over this, but home charging is the best if you can do it. You get home, plug in, and the next morning your car is good to go. That's something that any EV offers, but Tesla's supercharger network makes traveling beyond the range of your car a breeze. They have over 50,000 global supercharger stalls. These can charge up to 200 miles in 15 minutes and have incredible reliability. Tesla is in the process of opening many of these chargers to other EVs, but still their network remains a large advantage for the Model 3. I've done many road trips and it's truly not a concern when driving a Tesla. The one thing worth noting though is if you plan to road trip often, you'll probably want to get the highest range you can get to cut down charging time, and the highest range models also have a faster peak charging rate of 250 kilowatts, higher than the base model at 170 kilowatts. Overall, this car is still very much a Model 3, but it's a very upgraded one, taking new things from every car in Tesla's lineup. This is a very welcomed upgrade and extremely noticeable where it counts most, the driving experience. It feels much nicer inside, rides smoother, and rides much quieter. I love driving this car and it has become my new daily driver. The Model Y is great, but with these upgrades, I find myself preferring to drive this car most of the time. Tesla did a great job with this upgrade, and if you don't mind certain things like the removal of stocks, then it's a great buy. In the meantime, if you want to see my latest review of the Model Y, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.